Please rise while the colors are posted. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for our opening prayer.
Almighty God, you are the source of our life, strength, and purpose. In your presence alone we find help, hope, and life. Guide us during this hour of fellowship and reflection to be grounded with a healing reminder of your love to all whose lives you touch this day. For it's in your glory we gather and offer our prayers. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated. Good morning. I'm Peter K. Goebel. I'm the director of the Rensselaer County Veterans Service Agency. We have gathered here this morning to honor 3 deceased Rensselaer County veterans for the month of May, and those veterans are Paul T. Rustin, Sr., Joseph C. Rustin, and Theodore H. Rustin, Sr. We are honored to have with us this morning their family and close friends, Mary Ellen and Russell Chamberlain, Evan and Shalene Chamberlain, Axel Chamberlain, Eric and Karen Rustin, David Rustin, John and Carolyn Rustin, Ellen Hughes, Irvin Rustin, Rich Radigan, John Lyons, Josh Rustin, Peter Whitehouse, Harry Hale, Mary Alice Deal, Lois White, Barbara Barzee, Mike and Jackie Whalen, Jim Gordon, Frank Marola, Paul Satendera, Mike Plant, Kathy Jimino, Mark Wojcik, Nora Dwyer, Jason Schofield, Corinne Sheldon, Darlene and Jim Simpson, Donald, Donna and Kim Kane, Mike and Debbie Angley, Peg Cody, Kay Hughes, Rose Kellogg, Mary Conroy, Robert and Sandra Madigan, and John Craig. Thank you all for being here. Also with us today to honor our Veteran of the Month are Congressman Paul Tonko, Congressman John Faso, former Congressman Michael McNulty, New York State Senator Kathleen Marchione, New York State Assemblyman John McDonald III, Rensselaer County Executive Steve McLaughlin, Rensselaer County Legislative Chairman Mike Stammel, Rensselaer County Legislative Majority Leader Ken Harrington, Rensselaer County Legislative Deputy Minority Leader Ed Manny, Rensselaer County District Attorney Joel Abelove, Colonel Joseph Morrow, the commander of the Watervliet Arsenal, and County Legislators Tom Grant, Dan Casal, Mark Fleming, and Robert Loveridge. As we are all well aware, Memorial Day and Veterans Day are special days to remember all of our veterans. This program was created to help us honor our veterans all year round, To us here in Rensselaer County, every day is Veterans Day. The Rensselaer County honor deceased veterans throughout the entire county. This includes members of the American Legion, disabled American veterans, veterans of Lansingburg, Military Order of the Purple Heart, Marine Corps League, veterans of foreign wars, Korean War veterans, Tri-County Council of Vietnam-era veterans, Heroes at Home, Combat Veterans Motorcycle Association, and Vietnam Veterans of America. I will now ask Mike Stammel, Rensselaer County Legislative Chairman, to come forward to tell us about our honored veterans for the month of May, Paul T. Rustin Sr., Joseph C. Rustin, and Theodore H. Rustin Sr.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. With the size of the Ruskin family and the three honorees today, it's a rather lengthy introduction. Not as long as the introductions you had of everybody here, but we'll get through it. All righty. Thank you for joining us today, this very special honor to deceased veterans program, as we honor three brothers who sadly passed away within 1 year of each other. Okay. Today we honor Theodore Hal Ruskin, Sr., Paul Theodore Ruskin, and Joseph Charles Ruskin, Sr. Wilbur Rustin and his wife, Ellen Hal Rustin, started their family in Glens Falls, New York in September of 1942. As their family began to grow, and while their newest son, John, was only 2 months old, the Ruskin family moved to Troy, New York, where they moved to Troy looking for a better employment and a new opportunity for their families. Once in Troy, the family lived in an apartment on King Street. Wilbur began to work for the City Water Department, Troy Water Department, and soon purchased a home on 9th Street next to the Little Sisters of the Poor. Wilbur was also a popular preacher in Troy, Albany, and Schenectady, and was paid $5 each service that he did for $15 a week. Went a long way to help the family, the growing family. Wilbur and Ellen had a large family together as they raised 12 children. They had 4 girls, Rhonda, Alice, Phyllis, and Ellen. They had 8 boys, Erwin, Thomas, Joseph, Theodore, Paul, John, Carlos, and David. The children all attended Troy Public Schools. The Ruskin family was proud to grow up under the roof and eat dinner together every night at a custom-built dinner table that was built by Wilbur. Well, that must have been some table, huh? Wow. That must have been one big table, that's for sure. Joseph Charles Ruskin was born in May 29, 1937. He enlisted in the United States Navy on November 10, 1954. After he completed his education, Joseph was an armament mechanic and served in NAFTA Air Base in Okinawa, Japan. Joseph was honorably discharged from the Navy in San Francisco on May 22, 1958. Joe returned to Troy and married Martha Moore Howd in 1960. They moved to Waterford, and where they raised their 5 children, Mary Ellen, Karen, Joseph, David, Eric, Joseph, and Joseph supported his family by working at Leaseway in eastern New York, Leo Overhead Doors, and lastly, at the Leroy Holding Company, where he retired. In his spare time, Joseph enjoyed fishing and was an avid card player. Joseph was a member of the American Legion in Cohoes and the VFW in Waterford. Sadly, in July 19, 2015, Joseph passed away, left behind to cherish in his memory was his wife of 55 years, Martha, his 2 daughters, Mary Ellen and Karen, and 3 sons, Joseph Jr., David, Eric, and 5 grandchildren, Shalene, Evan, Adam, Danta, and Timothy, 2 sisters, Phyllis and Ellen, and his 5 brothers, Erwin, Thomas, and Paul. Theodore and John Joseph was preceded by his parents, Wilbur and Ellen, and his sisters, Rhoda and Alice, and his brothers, David and Carlise. Joseph is buried in the Gerald B. H. Solomon Saratoga National Cemetery in Schuylerville. Theodore Hal Ruskin was born on October 12, 1940, After completing his education, Theodore enlisted into the United States Naval Reserve in Troy, New York, on December 9, 1957, and was placed in inactive duty with the USNR Surface Division 3-99L on December 16, 1958. Seaman Recruit Rustin was called to active duty and sent to recruit training in the United States Navy Training Center at the Great Lakes, Illinois. Upon his education from the recruit training, Seaman Rustin was assigned to shore duty in Key West, Florida. Not a bad hitch. Florida Naval Station. In May of the 1960s, Seaman Rustin reported to the Naval Station in Mayport, Jacksonville, Florida, and was assigned to the USS Saratoga, CVA-60. While participating in the USS Saratoga in operation in Sword Thrust, the latest NATO exercise conducted in 1960 in the North Atlantic Ocean, from the Arctic Circle in the Norwegian Sea to the Bay of Biscay, from the coast off the coast of France. Seaman Rustin and his shipmates were aboard one of two strike aircraft carriers among the several hundred aircraft, ships, and vessels maneuvering to retain nuclear supremacy in the Air Force and in the air and in the sea in that region. On November 18, 1960, Seaman Rustin was honorably discharged from the United States Navy at Washington, D.C. for his honorable service to his country. Seaman Rustin was awarded the Honorable Discharge button. Upon Theodore's discharge from the United States Navy, he settled into the civilian and married life with his wife, Ruth Bowman, who he married on July 11, 1959 in Waterville, New York. They settled into married life in Waterford, New York, and raised 3 children, 2 daughters, Ruth and Ellen, and Terry Ann, and a son, Theodore Jr. Theodore supported his family through his employment at the Bear Manning in Waterville, and later retired from his own heavy equipment business. Theodore's favorite pastime was rebuilding and painting antique classics and street rod cars. Theodore was a lifetime legacy member of the USS Saratoga Association. Sadly, on March 7, 2016, Theodore passed away. Left behind to cherish in his memory is his wife of 56 years, Ruth, his daughters, Ruth, Ellen, and Terry Ann, his son, Theodore Jr., his sister, Phyllis and Ellen, his brother, Erwin, Thomas, Paul, and John. Theodore was preceded by his parents, Wilbur and Ellen. His sister, Rhoda and Alice, and his brothers, Joseph, Carlos, and David. Theodore is buried at Oak Hill Cemetery in Lake Placid, Florida, and where Ruth has relocated to after where they relocated after he was retired. Next is Paul Theodore Rustin. Received his education in Troy Public School District. After Paul finished his academic studies, he obtained work as a shipping checker for the Montgomery Wards in Menands, New York, and later as a paint dipper in a rototiller company in Troy, New York, prior to establishment into the United States Navy. On April 6, 1954, Paul enlisted into the United States Naval Reserves in Albany, New York, and was placed in inactive duty with the USNR Surface Division 345 on January 26, 1955. Seaman Recruit Rustin was called to active duty and was sent to recruit training at the Naval Training Center in Bryansbridge, Maryland. Upon the graduation of the recruit training, Seaman Rustin served aboard the USS Demonis for the duration of his active duty. On January 25, 1957, the United States Navy Fireman Rustin was honorably discharged from the United States Navy and was transferred to the Naval Reserves for completion of his reserve obligation. For his honorable service to his country, Fireman Rustin was awarded the Navy Occupational Service Medal and European Clasp and National Defense Service Medal. Upon Paul's discharge from the United States Navy, He settled into civilian life in Waterford, New York, and raised 3 sons, Wayne, Paul Jr., and Douglas. Paul married his second wife, Barbara, in Troy, New York. Paul supported his family through his employment with his auto body industry. In his spare time, Paul enjoyed bowling, hunting, and fishing. Sadly, on April 12, 2016, Paul passed away and left behind to cherish in his memory his wife, Barbara, his sons, Wayne, Paul Jr., and Douglas, his grandchildren, Wayne Jr. and Chase, his sister, Phyllis and Ellen, and brothers, his brothers, Erwin, Thomas, and John. Paul was preceded by his parents, Wilbur and Ellen, his sister, Rhoda and Alice, and his brothers, Joseph, Theodore, Carlos, and David. Paul is buried at Avon Park, Florida, where he and Barbara had resided after retiring. After reading the life stories of the Rustin brothers, it is clear that Wilbur and Ellen Rustin raised a large family of patriotic Americans. On behalf of the Rensselaer County Legislature, we honor the Rustin family here today and has allowed the opportunity to recognize the service and dedication to their brothers Joseph, Theodore, Paul. May God bless them and all of you that are here today. Thank you for giving us this opportunity.
I will now ask Congressman Paul Tonko to come forward.
Thank you, Peter, and good morning, everyone. Always an honor to join with the Rensselaer County Legislature and my colleagues in government, including John McDonald, who's here today, and our new county exec, and Mr. McLaughlin, and my colleague and friend, John Faso, with whom I have the pleasure to serve in Washington. It is great to join with so many veterans and active military who are here this morning, and so many representatives from veterans organizations, many organizations that were highlighted, and to also be joined by my predecessor, Michael McNulty, Congressman McNulty. Thank you, Mike, for planting the seeds for this great opportunity to recognize individuals of greatness. So, Chairman Rustin, to you and the Rustin family, just an honor to be with you this morning as we honor 3 of the Rustin family's baby boys, and to see that they entered into the military through the Navy and had brought great pride to the family. We're reminded that oftentimes there are these multiple members of the family who at the same time or nearly the same time are serving their nation. And that demanded much of these families, the stress, the pressure on parents and siblings as their loved ones would enter into the military is truly a love story that's penned on behalf of this nation. And so this morning we honor these 3 individuals of greatness through their work, as was indicated, Joe working, serving through the Navy and offering himself in Okinawa and making certain that he was part of that mission there. And then the other 2 brothers, with Ted and Paul serving through the United States Naval Reserve, and also that particular effort with the nuclear submarines that are a really big contribution from the Navy. We see it here in the local region, and we know what a powerful force they are to the strength of our nation's military through the Navy. And so great contributions that were made. I think what is so wonderful is that all 3 were obviously driven by a deeply rooted sense of patriotism, but also by that family value, those family values that were learned at that special table, which obviously brought the family together and enabled people to share in a common strength and wove into that fabric of family deeply rooted spirit and values that would serve this nation well. It is always an honor to hear about the stories of these individuals that are recognized by this ceremony, and to see that they gave of themselves by leaving the familiarity of hometown and the comforts of home to be able to serve in the military and to serve well. And this morning I'm going to join with my colleague, John Faso, in offering 3 flags that have been flown over the nation's capital in tribute, in memory of these 3 gentlemen who unfortunately had passed in a very short period of time. And so these 3 brothers are united again in the next world, and we thank them for their great service to this country. We're a free people because of them, and our values, our freedoms, our liberties have not only been protected by them, but promoted to freedom-loving people around the world. So an honor to be here this morning with the entire Rustin family and my colleagues in government and our veterans and active military to salute them and thank them for their fine service, and also offer prayers and thanks that they will rest eternally in the hands of their Creator. Thank you so much for their service.
I will now ask Congressman John Faso to come forward.
Good morning, everyone. Peter, thank you very much, and thank you to the Rensselaer County Legislature for each month bringing us all together with local veterans to recognize and memorialize deceased veterans from Rensselaer County who have served our nation. I thank Paul Tonko, my colleague in Washington. He and I have jointly had these flags flown over the Capitol of the United States in memory of each of the Rustin boys. And I also want to again acknowledge Congressman Mike McNulty, who has always been out there to promote and defend and help us remember our nation's veterans. It's so significant and important. Thank you to Congressman McNulty, and thank you to everyone who is here today. And I know Colonel Morrow is here as well, and that is, it's always a pleasure to see Colonel Morrow from the Watervliet Arsenal participate in these ceremonies also. You know, the Rustin boys went to serve, and I guess there's no secret that if it's an Army-Navy game, which side the Rustin boys were rooting for, since they seem to have been imbued with the U.S. Navy. But the fact is, they served during the Cold War. This was a period of great uncertainty in our nation, where Americans did not know. The memories of World War II and Korea were very, very fresh in the minds of our countrymen. And the entire nation was really on edge over the domination of Eastern Europe by the Soviet Union, the threat of advancing communism, the fact that both the Soviet Union and then what we used to call Communist China were nations which had unbridled hostility to our way of life and our freedoms. And the Rustin boys, Joe, Ted, and Paul, went forth like so many other millions of men and women and served our nation during a time of great uncertainty for all of us. And those of us that are old enough to remember things like the Cuban Missile Crisis know full well the uncertainty and difficulty that we faced during that period. And so while they were not called to serve in active warfare, the fact is they were in the bulwark of defending our freedom during a very difficult time in our nation's history. And so on behalf of the people of our district, the people of Rensselaer County, and the people of the entire Capital Region, we pay homage and we thank the Rustins for their service, thank your family, and thanks to the 3 of them, the 3 boys who went forth, Joe, Ted, and Paul, to serve our nation in the U.S. Navy. Their memory shall always be cherished and recognized here at home. May God bless them, may God bless their memories, and may God bless the United States of America. Congressman? So on behalf of Paul and I and the people of our district, we wanted to present this flag to you in memory of your brother Joe, Paul, to thank him for his service and to thank you and your family for all of the sacrifice that the Rustin family made on behalf of our nation. Who should accept the flag on behalf? pleased to present this flag to you in memory of your relative who served so valiantly and with great honor and dignity for our country. God bless you.
I will now ask our Rensselaer County Executive, Steve McLaughlin, to come forward.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure and honor to be here this morning to honor the three Ruston boys, Joe, Ted, and Paul. And what a great crowd. That's just a great sign of a show of respect here. It's good to be with my colleagues in federal government, with Congressman Tonko and Faso and Congressman McNulty and Senator Marchione and Assemblyman McDonald, and my predecessor, Kathy Marchione, is here. Kathy Gimino is here as well, and all the county legislators. Just a great show of respect. And what a family, 12 kids. Now I know why John Ruston never wants to let any leftovers go to waste. With 12 kids, there probably weren't many leftovers at that table, so if you don't grab those donuts before you leave, John certainly will. But this is also one of the few gatherings I've been at with John where he's not selling 50-50 tickets as well. So. But, you know, what a great family. You know, three brothers go off and serve this nation at an uncertain time, as Congressman Faso and Congressman Tonko said. An uncertain time. The Cold War was no guarantee that hostilities were not going to break out at any time, and they were there to help us and serve. And then, like so many other veterans, come home, take off the uniform, raise a family, go back to work, and just do their job as members of this community, continuing to serve us in a different way. So it is a great honor to be here today, and three at one time is pretty incredible, but just shows how fantastic this family is. So it's a great honor to be here today, to take a moment out of our day, and thank you for allowing us to honor your brothers and family members. Thank you very much. And I brought with me commendations from our office here. And once again, just thank you. It's a great honor.
I will now ask Rensselaer County Legislative Majority Leader Ken Harrington and the assembled county legislators to come forward.
Good morning. I'm not new to the legislature. I'm somewhat new to attending these functions. I've been around for a number of years. Thanks to Chairman John Ruston, he keeps asking me to run again. We're getting there, though, John. I've always relied on Tom Walsh to handle this job from the day I came here. Tom and I came together the last time around, anyway. And he did a whale of a job here. So I said, well, I'm no competition for Tom Walsh. And then, luckily, we had another veteran join the legislature, Jake Ashby. And I said, whew, that's, I can still stay back home on the farm and get things done. But Jake decided he was going to move on. So I guess I'm the last standing veteran in the legislature, and they said, well, Harrington, you're going to have to handle this for a while. So here I am. Thank you for all of you for coming, and it's my honor to be here and present these proclamations to the family. You know, I'm of the same age group these fellows were, and when we were growing up, we were always told, you know, that we had an obligation to serve if we were able, and we all that was just the thing you did. If you were able to serve, you served. And I remember somebody says, well, the sacrifices during the Cold War or whatever, is the sacrifice that big? But you know, I remember the day I left home and I was going to be shipped overseas. I said to my mom and dad, I'll be back in 2 years. I mean, that's to a country boy, that's a big change. And it's hard for the family to get used to that, but we did. And I went and came back. So I recognize the sacrifices that these fellows made and the families made to serve. And I want to say thank you, thanks to them, and thanks to the family. You know, I wonder sometimes that the generations today, you know, we take freedom for granted, I think, more than we used to. And I was always told, and we always should remember, freedom's not really free. There's a price you pay, and we all know the prices we've paid. So I want to say thank you, and I will hand out these. I won't read these proclamations, as our chairman did an excellent job, but I will hand these out to the family, and thank you. Okay, you follow me? Yeah, we'll follow you. All right. We're going to get this straight. There you go.
It certainly does, yeah. 56-year Saturday.
I will now ask New York State Senator Kathy Marchionne to come forward.
Good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here with all of you, my colleagues, and the Rustin family. It's just, you know, when you follow all of the speakers who have just talked about the Rustin boys, and Ken, I want you to know that you filled those shoes of Tom Walsh, because your comments were so heartfelt, and to me, just sitting there meant so much. I can't imagine how much they meant to the family. But I'm here also, and as a state senator on behalf of the 43rd Senate District, I get to bring New York State's highest award, the Liberty Medal, to the three boys with a very grateful heart. You know, last week we joke about the Army-Navy games, but last week in the Senate chambers we had West Point Day. And during West Point Day, it is one of the most amazing days in the Senate, because we get to honor the newest of cadets, the best and the brightest of today. Only 1,000 out of 16,000 who actually apply get into West Point. And we have the honor to stand on the floor, and we have the honor to say thank you for what you're going to do for us. And that meant a great deal. And while I spoke on the floor, Emil Baker was in the audience, and I said, as a local senator, it's even better because our local people get to come. Amy Moroso was there, and Emil Baker was there. And they come because you're so important. And then I turned to our own Peter Goebel, who was a West Point graduate alumni as well. And I got to honor Peter on the floor. And today, I get to stand here and I get to honor Theodore and Joseph and Paul. And it doesn't get better than that as a senator to say thank you to those who sacrificed and served. And as I stand here and I think about them, I have to think about their mother. And I notice the years in which they served. She had 3 boys gone, all at the same time. That's a huge sacrifice, not only to the boys that were gone and serving, but to your mom and your dad and all of you who were left back to worry about how are they doing and what are they doing and are they okay. So let's say thank you to your mom and dad, and thank you to the 3 Rustin boys. I don't believe I have ever honored 3 at one time, personally, and it's a huge honor. John, I've known you now for years. It's a huge honor to be here for you. And if Lois White is actually sitting in the audience, she was my first introduction to the Rustin family. She worked with me in the county clerk's office. She was my first friend. So this is a very special day, not only for you, but for me. And at this time, I will present the Liberty Medal to each of you.
I will now ask New York State Assemblyman John McDonald III to come forward.
Well, thank you, Peter, and good morning to my colleagues in elected office, both active and retired. I know we've got a few here today. To the Rustin family, it's great to be here with you as well. And to all of Rensselaer County, which seems to be here today as well. What a great showing of support for the Rustin family, and it's a true honor. You know, it's not lost to me as I look at John as the Republican chair that it wasn't but 8 or 9 months ago, I think, when we actually recognized a family of the former chair of the Democratic Party, Tom Wade. And I mention it for this reason, as much as sometimes our political affiliations will have some differences of thoughts, although I think Kathy and Steve would admit we agree more often than most people give us credit for. The reality is this: the one thing that unites us is support and love for our country. And the Rustin family is another classic example. It wasn't by accident that these 3 young men decided to go serve their country. It started with mom and dad around that very large table. I guess, John, after Steve's comments, you must be the run of the litter. Is that the whole deal? You don't have to answer that. Yeah, that's right. Well, that's okay. You're getting the last word in today. But you know, it's because of family and it's because of love for country that it's what makes our country so great. It's what actually separates us from all the rest. So this is my last month of doing this by myself. Next month, hopefully, maybe this afternoon, Jake Ashby will be seated as the member of the Assembly. But with or without Jake, it's a pleasure on behalf of the New York State Assembly to present these citations to the family, and thank you for the opportunity to recognize them.
Tim Forbes from the Rensselaer County Honor Deceased Veteran Committee will present the committee plaques at this time. Will the committee members please stand?
On behalf of the Honor Deceased Veteran Committee, the citizens of Rensselaer County and the veterans here assembled, please accept these plaques as a token of our appreciation for your loved one's service. And it is special honor and three at once. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Please stand for the closing prayer.
Almighty God, the day is done. Go on the sun from the lake, the hill, the sky. All is well. God compassion, dignity, and strength watch over this veteran and his family. Bless him and grant his family comfort and everlasting peace. Amen. Amen.
Retire the colors. This concludes our Honor a Vet ceremony for this month. Thank you for coming to honor our deceased veterans for the month of May: Paul T. Rustin Sr., Joseph C. Rustin, and Theodore H. Rustin Sr. Please join us for our next Honor a Veteran ceremony scheduled for June 11th. Before we go our separate ways, we will take a few family photos. Then we will reassemble outside at our county flagpole to raise the flag in the Rustin brothers' memory. Thank you.